In this video I want to continue our delve into chapter 7, Doom of Ythryn, in Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. So Ythryn is of course the last chapter of the book, this big sprawling necropolis where the characters must go to uncover the Ythryn Mythalar and end Oral's everlasting rhyme, and or just loot some cool magical stuff from the spire of Lathas in the middle of the city. Whichever their purpose is, they will need to get into that spire, and to do so they must pass a force field. To pass that force field they must venture about the city, discovering various clues to perform something called the Rite of the Arcane Octad. During this time they will of course be traveling around, perhaps encountering random encounters, and there's a lot that goes into this. So we of course as the DM understand this, right? We've read it, it makes sense, we know what they have to do. But the thing is, the characters may actually not know what they're supposed to do. There's only really 2 places in the book as written where the characters are directly told how to perform the Rite of the Arcane Octad and how they must go about their time in Ythryn. And that is with the Nothics at the end of the Caves of Hunger, where the characters can get some clues and get some explanation about what's going on in Ythryn and how they can get into the spire if they think to ask, of course. And then there is also a doppelganger in area Y5 prison in Ythryn itself. Beyond these places, the characters can of course get an understanding of what they're supposed to do by unraveling these clues, putting 2 and 2 together, but they won't directly be told what they're supposed to do unless they speak with the Nothics or find the prisoner in Y5. We can of course do our best to ensure that either or both of these things happen, but you can also go ahead and put in some more clues for the characters to find, so we don't get into a situation where the characters or the players themselves become frustrated because they don't know what to do. First off, you can replace one of the pieces of Ythryn lore, that could be piece number 17, with in times of trouble the wizards raised a force field around the enclave's central spire that only someone performing the Rite of the Arcane Octad could pass through. You can also put an inscription above the door to the spire, that's Y6, that reads "Perform the Rite of the Arcane Octad to enter," so the characters just realize that there is a rite they're supposed to perform. In the Tower of Conjuration, that's Y7, you can have the hags know about the rite and perhaps give information about it in exchange for the characters' memories. And in Y9 Library, the Fiend Scrivenscry can help them if they help him search for the books that he is looking for. In Y18 Tower of Necromancy, Kadavic's ghost knows and shares if they help him find his body or uncover his body. And in Y29 the Museum, the Nothics here could also know about the ritual and may tell the characters if threatened. Finally, we can also have various NPCs help the characters. That could be Velin, Professor Scand and Avarice. The point here is to make it a bit less obvious, because it won't feel as if the characters are figuring it out on their own if Velin comes in from the sidelines and just explains what they're supposed to do. That could be Velin or Professor Scan simply saying, there must be some way to enter this force field, perhaps a passphrase or some sort of ritual we have to perform, without explaining to them point blank what they are supposed to do. They can give hints when the first clue is found if the characters don't think about it themselves and say perhaps there's more of these clues in similar towers or something like that. So you can try and keep it as subtle as you can while still explaining to the player characters what it is they're supposed to do if they're not catching on by themselves. In the end, Araris can also show up. She shows up by the book 12 hours after the characters have arrived, and she can, if she has a meeting with the characters, offer to explain to them how they're supposed to enter the tower and help them do so, help find the clues to enter the tower if they will ally with her, and of course throw Velin to the side of the road instead. So assuming that the characters eventually discover what they're supposed to do, they'll start traveling around, searching the city for these clues and searching the various wizards' towers. While they do so, the book tells us that we should track the time the characters spend in the city. There's several reasons for this. It's both because there's actual timelines given for when Avarice and Auril show up, that's 12 hours and 24 hours respectively, and also because we're supposed to run a random encounter every hour, and there's also this Arcane Blight that happens every 12 hours, which of course also has an impact depending on how much time the character spends in the city. The way the book suggests that we track time is that every unnamed location takes 30 minutes to search through, and that every 200 feet traveled takes 5 minutes. For me, this becomes a lot of bookkeeping, because we'll be writing down 5 minutes and trying to measure out how many feet is that, and then each unnamed location, what about a named location, how much time is spent there, and so on. So what I did and suggest that you do to simplify it is simply say that investigating a location, unnamed or named, takes 1 hour, and that includes the time spent walking there, investigating, short conversations, any small encounters, and so on. If the characters, of course, do something, take an activity that takes longer, such as short resting or playing a game of chain lightning or reading, investigating books and sitting down for several hours, you of course just add that onto the hours spent at the location. In any event, just simply knowing roughly how many hours the character spent doing something is enough. You don't need to keep track of every single minute. That is far too much bookkeeping and not at all necessary. And then there's of course also the random encounters the characters can run into while in Ythryn. Now most of these encounters are actually fine. I think they show what Ythryn is and has some relation to Ythryn in most cases, and they can also be pretty fun small combat encounters or social encounters. I think however that there's a time and place for random encounters, and I don't think necessarily that every hour is that time and place. So what I would do instead, and suggest that you do, is that you simply pick out the encounters you prefer and then put them in when it's tactically advantageous for you to do so. That could be to round out a day of adventuring if the characters are looking for a place to rest a bit too soon, they haven't been pressured really yet. You can put in that final combat encounter to make it a bit challenging and tense before they get a deserved long rest. You can also use encounters to simply spice up everything if the session is going slow, there hasn't been a battle for a while, the players are getting a bit antsy, they're just going around from location to location, it's not that interesting. Putting in a quick encounter there can be a way to get the right pacing and avoid things becoming stale. As said, I think that most of the encounters are fine, but there are a few of them that I would probably leave out, and that is the gargoyle encounter, which I just think it's just boring, and there's not really a reason. Gargoyles aren't particularly unique to Ythryn, they're not particularly fun combatants, especially for high-level characters. Then there's the encounter with Ireolathas, and as I discussed in the previous video, I think that the encounter with Ireolathas is best kept for the finale or the near finale of the adventure instead of just playing out randomly in the street. So I'd stay away from those two encounters, but I would try to emphasize the Nothic encounter because that is a place where the characters can actually get information if they are looking for information. They don't know how to perform the rite, they have some issues, they don't understand what's going on. Having a Nothic encounter can help steer them a bit. Then there's of course also the encounters with Auril and Avaris's minions, which I think you can use to let the characters and the players know that alright, now Avaris has arrived, or alright, now Auril has arrived. So putting them in these encounters is a good way to up the tension a bit, let the characters know, okay, they're not the only ones looking for something in Ythryn. So yeah, that wraps up this video. It's a bit of a short one, but I'm gearing up towards going into the actual locations in Ythryn, and I don't want these videos becoming hour-long essays. So in this video we just tackle these issues, and in the next video we'll be going into the locations in Ythryn and taking a closer look at some of the issues that may arise as the characters investigate the various ruined locations in the city. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and remember to like, subscribe. You can support us over at patreon.com/eventyr and all that jazz. For now, there's nothing left to say except thank you for watching, and I hope that I'll see you in the next video.